Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 24th July 2023. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Haribol TRSV Nectar NECTAR Nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been discussing about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of all that we have been doing in all my previous videos. Kindly subscribe to this video and this vlog so that I may keep reminding you of all my other videos, both past as well as future ones. So let us continue with the topic for today's video. We all know by now how the psyche of a human living entity takes shape in a particular lifetime of that particular human living entity. We know by now that there are a major four factors along with other subsidiary factors that influence the complete shaping up of the psyche of a human living entity. These four are as follows. Initially, there is a storage of all unworked karma of a human living entity in his or her superconscious memory. From this storage of unworked karma of a human living entity, he or she takes just one slice of that karma to be worked out in a particular lifetime. This lifetime is based on that slice of karma, and the particular living entity is born in some birth or some family or in some human species as per this foundation of the slice of Sanchit Karma. This slice is known as Prarabdha Karma. This Prarabdha Karma is the first factor in the making up of a human psyche. The second is what is known as Kriyamana Karma. The material world, the material energy and destiny give every human living entity a particular free will to use it in for his or her other new activities in a particular lifetime. That is, karma based on this free will result in some new efforts, activities, memories, karma, destiny, etc. This in Sanskrit is known as Kriyaman karma. The residue of unworked karma in this lifetime of the original prarabdha karma plus the residue of this unworked kriyamana karma is joined together to make the third karma called agami karma. This agami karma is in the end of the lifetime of the living entity joined or pasted to the already existing storage of sanchit karma of that living entity. When this living entity ends this lifetime and takes birth in another lifetime, that will be based on a foundation of one another prarabdha karma slice, which may be colored with the unworked kriyamana karma of the previous lifetime. In other words, it is kriyamana karma of a living entity in his or her every lifetime that, if unworked during that particular lifetime, becomes a part of his or her sanchit karma to be worked out in some future birth. The second factor that colors the psyche of a human living entity during a lifetime is that very Kriyamana karma. Then the vibrations of the subtle bodies of the living entity happen. We all know that the material world envelops the spirit soul with four layers of body, of whom three are subtle and the fourth is gross. It is this gross body that identifies every human living entity in this material world during a lifetime. But the vibrations from the subtle bodies, the three layers of subtle bodies, affect the activities of the gross body of that living entity in the material world. Vibrations from the causal body of intelligence, the astral body of feelings and emotions, and etheric body of senses are all transmitted initially to a mass of tissue that forms the part of the gross body of the living entity. This mass of tissue is known as brain. When these vibrations are transmitted to that brain starts processing these vibrations one by one. This is a continuous process that begins with the birth of that living entity and ends with his or her death at the end. However, these processing of vibration depend on the psyche, the whims, fantasies, preferences, background, evolvement, destiny, karma, and other such factors of that living entity. As for example, the vibrations of the brain of a particular living entity who is a scientist will be grossly different from the vibrations taken by the brain of, say, a carpenter or an electrician. In other words, in the first case, preference will be given to the vibrations from the causal intelligence, and in the second case, to the astral mind and etheric body, so on and so forth. This happens and this gives a coloring and variation to different human beings in a society. This is precisely the reason why all human beings react differently either all their life or in different times of their own life. There are several or numerous instances when one particular living entity reacted differently in his or her childhood, then adulthood, then middle age, and then old age. It was the same living entity, but because of his or her involvement in the society, he or she preferred to select vibrations from either his or her causal body, astral mind, or etheric senses. These are things which can be discussed to understand the human psyche of a particular living entity. This is the third factor that affects the psyche of the human living entity. The fourth factor is known as false ego. When a human living entity identifies only with a particular birth or lifetime and hence his or her body in that particular lifetime, then this ego, which makes him or her identify with that body, is known as false ego. There are three types of ego. False ego, which makes a living entity identify with his or her body. The actual ego, where the same living entity identifies with his or her soul, and superego, where the same living entity identifies himself or herself as a part of the super soul. We are talking only about the false ego where he or she identifies with his or her body. Body means all the four layers of the body that envelop the super soul of that living entity. These are causal intelligence, astral mind, etheric senses, and gross body. Anyone who identifies with these four layers of material body is known as suffering from or enjoying from his or her false ego. This false ego acts as a catalyst in forming the psyche of a particular human living entity, and hence it is known as the major fourth factor in the making up of the psyche of that living entity. To have a recap, first factor is prarabdha karma. Second factor is kriyamana karma. Third factor is vibration from the three layers of subtle body of that living entity. And the fourth factor is the false ego of that living entity. Besides this, there may be other subsidiary factors which may influence the psyche of that living entity. These include his or her company, surrounding, atmosphere, position, happenings around in the society, etc. But they are only subsidiary factors which make a particular person react in a particular circumstance, and hence they help shape up the overall psyche of that living entity. In today's video, we shall try to understand the psyche of one very interesting and intriguing individual. But before doing that, I would like to discuss about what is known as a saying in the English language. It takes a lot of capacity to achieve success, but it takes a lot of God or divine intervention to digest the very same success. We are all ordinary human beings. Success is a form of energy which generates a lot of heat. The heat and energy is such that it may or usually does sweep a person who has achieved it off his or her feet. It is very, very difficult for an ordinary human being to digest this particular energy of success in the ordinary life, because other forces may try to distract or indulge in psychophancy which may be detrimental to the capacity of that living entity. That is precisely the reason why there is another saying in Urdu: whenever there is a lot of success to a person, he tries or she tries to think that he or she is God Himself or herself. In Bhagavad Gita, it has been mentioned by Lord Krishna: the last snag of the Maya or material world is to make a particular person falsely presume that he or she is God. When this person decides that he or she is God, then the Almighty comes to know that there has been an overdose of and success energy in the life of that particular living entity, and so he pulls the rope of that particular puppet. This has been happening for time immemorial in this material world and the material society. This I am telling you because it is going to have a lot of effect in the life of the person or case history of the person who we are going to discuss in this particular story. We must realize that we can handle only so far of success and not further than that. If it comes to us unasked, then we must pray for divine intervention to digest this energy of success and pray to Him to keep us firmly on the terra firma or the ground. So let us begin with this particular case history. There is a province called Sindh which is now in Pakistan but was once a part of India in the Indian subcontinent. After partition in 1947, Sindh went to Pakistan. This Sindh and its people are known for their industriousness, enterprise, daring, intelligence, and extraordinary business acumen. One of such families was known as Hindujas. Hinduja is the surname of that particular family which is today internationally famous as a business house. Some 200 years back, these Hindujas were agriculturists, landowners, and small time businessmen in the province of Sindh. One of the ancestors of the Hindujas tried to expand further. Sindh is so strategically located that it is near both India as well as Iran. This particular very intelligent businessman with a foresight decided to expand both ways. He had his own kith and kin help him in expanding his business as a Hinduja business house in Iran, in Middle East as well as India. These people were probably in the money lending business in the initial stages, began financiers for different businesses, business houses, kings, and other such needy people both in Iran and India. Slowly, because of the colonial rule in the Indian subcontinent, these people expanded their business to Europe. In the turn of the 20th century, they began financing the then beginning film industry of Europe of every language, including English, German, French, Spanish, Italian, etc. These people prospered to such an extent that they also began financing the Hollywood film industry in United States of America. These people also had a toehold in India, which became independent in the year 1947. These people were financing Pakistani film industry also by that time. These guys financed and distributed films all over Europe, Pakistan, and Hollywood. In the year 1982, they entered the Bollywood or Bombay film industry for the first time when they purchased the world rights of a film called Suhag produced and directed by a person called Manmohan Desai, and a film which starred the superstar Amitabh Bachchan. This world rights were purchased for rupees 50 lakhs by Hinduja. Later on, these guys bid for a company called Ashok Leyland, which is situated in Chennai. This particular Ashok Leyland makes motor vehicles, especially lorries. These Hinduras successfully bid and purchased this particular Ashok Leyland in India, as a result of which their expanding business included another trophy called Ashok Leyland in India. Anyway, this particular business house had several brothers and sisters spread all over the world, including Europe, Australia, New Zealand, India, Hollywood, America, and other such countries, including Canada. These people had business interests all over the world. In the year 1970, one particular boy was born in the family of one of those Hinduja brothers. This boy was christened Dharam Hinduja. This Dharam Hinduja was born in the lap of luxury because of his own prarabdha karma, which allowed him to be born with a golden spoon in his mouth. Probably this particular living entity had done something so good that it got a gift of a prarabdha karma, which made him be born in the family of Hinduja. But more was to follow. This boy, till his early 20s, acted according to his prarabdha karma. That is, he enjoyed all comforts and luxuries as a scion of the very wealthy and successful Hinduja family. However, probably because he was based in India, he came across one very beautiful girl in India who we will name as Janelia. This Dharam Hinduja fell in love with this enchantingly beautiful girl called Janelia. Though she was deserving in every possible way, this girl's financial status was no match to the wealth, success, and power of the Hinduja family. Dharam was probably the only son of one of those Hindujas. This boy, because of his power, birth, and privilege, was quite adamant. He refused to obey his own family when they told him to turn away from this particular girl. This boy, who was by now in his early 20s, was head over heels in love with this girl. This all happened probably because 50% of prarabdha karma and 50% of his own free will and kriyamana karma. More of kriyamana karma was going to take over in the psyche of this particular scion of the Hinduja business family. When this boy was very adamant, he decided that the tug of war between him and his own family was such that he was likely to lose in the battle. So, what this boy did was one day he, along with his girlfriend Janelia, took a flight from Bombay to the country of Mauritius. The Hindujas were so powerful both financially and politically that they made the Indian government request the Mauritian government to declare that such a thing had happened in Mauritius, and a mention about this incident was made in none other than the Mauritius Parliament. However, the Mauritian government refused to bow down to the whims and fantasies of the Hinduja family, and it refused to extradite these guys for the time being. But because of his own Kriyamana karma, this guy got extremely scared and distraught and began thinking that he may probably lose this Genelia in this process. By that time, both Genelia and Dharam Hinduja were married duly in a temple and had become legally husband and wife. However, this did not prevent this Dharam Hinduja from committing suicide in the same hotel room where he and Janelia were staying in Mauritius. This was all because of his own Kriyamana karma. This was his own free will in this particular lifetime. It was such a waste of luck from prarabdha karma of a particular individual who was hardly in his 20s. This guy could have done wonders as a legal businessman from a very successful business house which was at least 200 years old. However, his own free karma and his own destiny made this boy take such a drastic and subtle step just because of his own vibrations from his astral body of feelings and emotion, and he committed suicide in front of the whole world and in front of the Hinduja family, which watched on in dismay and could do nothing about it.